Howdy all. Virginia Piper here. And got another chapter from my pipe smoking journey, as well as the first part of a story describing the adoption of our son. My wife and I landed in Frankfurt, Germany for a layover before we continued to Moscow. I wanted to have a hot dog for lunch so that I could say I had a Frankfurter in Frankfurt. Well, it really wasn't all that great. Now, while Germans have an incredible talent for making sausages, their hot dogs, I'm afraid, don't even come close to what we have in America. See, if you haven't had a Nathan's hot dog, you haven't had a hot dog. Nonetheless, I did have time to enjoy a pipe at the airport, not because I needed it, but because it was a pleasant way to kill the time between flights. But soon we were on board a Lufthansa flight to Moscow, landed a few hours later. My luggage, however, did not. And given that English is not widely spoken in that country, it took some effort to report this to the airline. Well, my wife and I were exhausted from the trip, but I still found time to enjoy a pipe in our hotel room. And thankfully, my luggage did arrive at our hotel the next day. And in fact, a pipe at the end of the day pretty much became a regular thing while we were in Russia. But anyway, our adoption agency assigned us a woman who would help us with the whole process and also translate for us. I made it a point to learn the Cyrillic alphabet ahead of time, and I had a blast reading the signs and billboards, discovering Russian words that were, in effect, derivatives of English ones. So I was fascinated. The first morning, we rode out to a small town, about an hour and a half from Moscow, to meet a 9-month-old baby boy the agency had selected for us. Well, just excuse me for a sec. See if we can get this pipe going a little bit better. So at the orphanage, we met him, and he was a little bit concerned and kept looking back at one of the staff members when my wife first held him, which, by the way, is a good thing. He soon did warm up to us, and we had a great time playing with him and getting to know him. He was a tiny guy due to malnourishment because the orphanage just didn't have the resources to feed him properly. I gotta tell you, I didn't feel an instant connection to him, but I found myself wondering, who is this kid? And when will he call me Dad? Well, we also spent a lot of time filling out and filing paperwork to start the adoption process. So that pretty much would be our days. Later on in the evenings, we did a little bit of exploring, but didn't venture too far from our hotel room because English, again, wasn't widely spoken there. And we didn't want to get ourselves desperately lost. We stopped a police officer to ask him where Red Square was. So I asked him in Russia, "Voita poнимаю по-английски," which means, "Do you speak English?" "No," he responded. I then asked if he spoke German, And apparently he knew enough of, apparently I knew enough of that language to ask him where Red Square was, because he pointed us in the right direction. Sadly, we had to leave the boy behind and return home, as it would take several weeks to process the paperwork. And it broke my heart because he'd grown attached to us and suddenly we were going to disappear from his life for a while. But the break did give us some time to make preparations for him at home. So, by the way, there is a part 2 to this story, which I'll share in a later video. Hope you're having a good one.